Perfect. Super. Well, thanks for inviting us to speak along, and we're super excited to see Red Hat sort of really dive into the AIOps stuff, and it's been an area and a market that at Moogsoft we've been somewhat very early in from the history of the company going all the way back to 2012. We've been long convinced that AI, in the particular guise of machine learning and data science, has got a pivotal role in how people operate the sort of the modern infrastructure. And I can't go forward without sort of making a naked pitch for what's going to happen on May the 15th, which is our AIOps exchange in San Francisco. And if you've not heard, please Google it and please register. We'd be delighted to have fellow travellers along. So without further ado, I just want to talk a little bit about what we're doing with AIOps to help people with operational challenges that derive principally from the modern cloud resident stack. And my personal journey with this has been pretty lengthy. I've been involved in service assurance and operations since the early 1990s, having co-founded Micromuse and wrote a product called Netcall, and done a bunch of startups in this space, culminating in Moogsoft. And this little eye chart here, kind of gives you a sort of a brief history of time in terms of what I've seen change and morph over that period. And if you kind of go back to the original mainframe era, which was sort of dying out as I entered the market, service assurance was actually done extremely well. And part of the reason for that was, single vendor. It was very, very simple. It was pretty low scale, and change cycles were, glacial, to say the least. Then, of course, we all lived through the distributed computing wave, where this started to erode the ability to deliver service in a very straightforward way, just because scale and complexity started to enter into the environment with multiple vendors, standards-driven, best-in-breed type approach. And really what's going on is the kind of the latest phase that is, we're all living in the cloud resident, sort of digitally transformed enterprise is spectacularly complex and high scale. We are seeing almost a sort of a chaotic, deployment paradigm where, large enterprises have moved to a fully Agile DevOps application development toolchain. So change cycles are almost instantaneous, sub-second, very, very, very large scale, and it requires something very different to be done. And this is kind of a sort of almost a Dimbo slide in a lot of ways, just to sort of punch the point home that in the yesterday data center, if you were writing an application, you wrote an app to run on a specific operating system to run on an actual physical server. There are 2 to 3 interactions between those 3 components. You have to worry about making sure the right version of the operating system, the right version of the hardware, the app is built in the right way, the app is built to optimize the bare metal. But still, it was pretty contained. Then you look today, and actually this is a slice through our cloud in terms of how we deploy our application in. The app is deployed by Jackson, is configured via Helm, that is driving Kubernetes, that is driving Docker, that runs on VM, that is controlled by a hypervisor, that runs on our open system, that runs on bare metal, that belongs to Amazon, right? And all of these various different interactions and the dependencies therein, drive 2 orders of magnitude more considerations just for one application. And of course, all of this is as our friends at Federated.ai were pointing out, we're also navigating our way through the whole multi-cloud and instance management world as well. Net is the complexity is a complete phase transition step change to what it was before. And the so what about that is, this is there for a reason. And the reason is this digital transformation, where you've gone from organizations being able to happily live in the world of a much more regulated economy where, say, a Wells Fargo competes with a Bank of America, competes with a Citibank, whereas now they're having to compete with digitally transformed startups. And this is across every segment, every part of the economy. and it drives a step change in how you manage service. And it really comes down to this scale and complexity that is driven by this massive upstage in the number of moving parts. Modern application infrastructure is much more chatty. The number of data points is measured in the billions. The failure modes goes up into this 10 to 120 number, which we worked out from a large enterprise it's Yahoo, from a while back, which 10 to 120, by the way, the reason I'm an ex-theoretical physicist, the reason why that number is of interest, it actually is more information that is stored in the observable universe, to give you an idea of how bad it is. And the complexity in terms of what people are having to deal with is hugely significant. So what to do? If you look across a lot of our customers, what they're seeing is this overwhelm by data and lack of information is driving all kinds of consequential issues with the quality of service assurance, the amount of data that help desks and SREs are having to deal with, the amount of incidents that are actually being captured by monitoring, how you proceed to a resolution of an issue that is threatening service is very siloed and very linear, and the net is it's horrible. So what do you do? So this is really the appeal for the insertion of AI and data science in operations. And it kind of stems from, back in the day when things were a lot more predictable and a lot more low scale, you had this kind of state and measurement separation of the world, where you could analyze the system that you were monitoring, work out what the potential failure modes of that system were, monitor for the occurrence of those failure modes, act, and then sort of continue to do this in a continuous cycle. And, the time around, if you like, the orbit of that left-hand circle was a lot faster than the change cycle of the system that you were monitoring. And in any case, the scale of the systems was such that you could take this rules-based approach. Well, in the modern world, in the modern stack, you can't do that. It is so complicated that there isn't the ability to analyze for potential failure modes. You can't work them out. It is too complicated. So you can't go through this rules model-based approach to monitor for the known failure modes. You really have to combine state and measurement and use the data that you're getting from the monitored systems to give you indications of where there may be service-threatening impacts, and allowing you to have a much more sort of fluid approach to doing it. So long story short, you've got to use techniques of data science to look for, in the monitored events and metrics from your systems, the clues as to where service may be being compromised. How we do this at Moogsoft, what our incarnation of this insight is really a pipeline of algorithms that starts on the left-hand side with we take anything, we take application logs, we take metrics from CollectD, StatsD, we take traps, we take indications from underlying management systems. We really don't care. We use a bunch of information theoretic algorithms to suppress noise, because, by the way, most of that data is junk and useless. And then what we're really doing is we're looking in those synthesized flows for groups of self-correlated events that indicate that there is an underlying causal thing that has occurred, which has caused the pattern of alerts to be sent to us. We mine that data for these groups of alerts. We call them situations. And because we're extracting this entire narrative of the impact, we're able to take a collaborative approach to inviting people into a virtual incident war room to try and sort of remediate the thing, automatically trigger automation, and then mine the interactions for insights, for future occurrences. And I'm just going to cause the animation to finish. This is a slightly more detailed view of it. So what it really boils down to is sort of 4 pillars. Entropy is the information theoretic algorithm that we use to try and eliminate the noise. This correlation, this grouping, is combinations of unsupervised machine learning and supervised machine learning. We can take indications from time, topology, text in the data to form these clusters of alerts. We then have a series of information theoretic and supervised machine learning algorithms to look for root cause inside of those groups of alerts. Some of them are neural net driven. Some of them are using terms that you might not be familiar with, vertex entropy, which is actually fundamental research that we did at Moogsoft into how you can take hints from interrelationships of entities to look at where you're more likely, where the high likelihood is of a service impacting incident to arise from. So there are some peer-reviewed journal articles in and around that. And then outside of that, once we have this collaborative war room, we're looking for things like situation similarity, that's cluster similarity, to drive prompting, remediation hints, and to accrete a sort of a living runbook, if you like. If there's anybody that's British on the call, I always chuckle when I see the little bottom right-hand icon, which is supposed to be a brain, but looks like a kind of a Graham Souness wig to me. But anyway, think of 70s permed hairdos. Right, now, why am I not getting any joy here from my computer to be able to flick on?
You trying to swap into a demo, or?
No, I'm trying to move the slide on, but it's kind of not really.
Perhaps you paused your animation and it.
There you go. That's fine. There we go. Let me just get back to this. Are you you getting their slides?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. Apologies. We like to think of ourselves as an AIOps leader, and I'll give you a little bit of the reason why we made that claim. We've been at this since 2011. We've filed 50 plus patents, been granted. I think 14 was the number on Friday, and there's about 20 that will grant this year on top of that. We've raised about 100 million in funding since 2012. Goldman Sachs, Cisco, Redpoint, Wing. We're about a year away from being cash flow generative. We'll never need to raise finance again. We're on our way to scale. About 150 of the Fortune 2000 use our software. The team is comprised of a bunch of folks that really have been here before. This will be my third at scale company in this space, and we've got leaders from Splunk, Qualys, AppDynamics, and other businesses in there as well. And if you look at the breadth of the IP that we've built, I mean, this is just a vista across places where we have either both filed a patent or produced a peer-reviewed paper that is generated IP that is in the product. So everything from alert significance, timestamp patents, text value similarities, use of topology, use of entropy of graphs, use of deep learning across the correlation engine, feedback, and root cause kind of form part of our platform. And that's it for me. Again, I'll just say if anybody is welcome to come join us on the 15th of May in the Four Seasons. Just to hit our website, it's pretty prominent. Any questions? And thank you for listening.
What city was that event in?
San Francisco. Our HQ is in Levi Plaza. We're doing this on the Four Seasons on Market Street.
Okay, cool. If you want to post that to the SIG mailing list, I'll put that link in the chat as well, so you can post that for other members.
Perfect. I'll ask Gabe, who's from our product marketing, to do that for me, and we'll definitely do that. But thank you.
Perfect.